Hey guys, Dr. Frank here, founder of Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching Programs, and in today's video I want to take a brief moment and talk about nicotine withdrawals. Now this video can apply to you if you vape, if you smoke cigarettes, if you dip, if you use Nicorette gum or nicotine pouches such as the Zen pouches or On pouches. This video applies to you. Now, if you've used nicotine before in the past, chances are it's not your first time watching a video when it comes to nicotine withdrawal or how to quit nicotine. So in today's video, I want to talk about what withdrawal is, how you can overcome nicotine withdrawal, and some of the things that you should expect when you're quitting using nicotine products. Let's start right off the bat by talking about what nicotine withdrawal feels like and then why nicotine withdrawal develops. So I want to make one point crystal clear. If you take nothing else away from this video, you go through nicotine withdrawal every 30 minutes to an hour when you're addicted to nicotine. So a lot of people are always very, very fearful of quitting nicotine because they've heard about these big scary withdrawals, which honestly, it's not true. But they really are afraid of this. And then when I sit down and talk to them, I say, hey, listen, don't you realize that you go through nicotine withdrawal every half hour, every 60 minutes? When you're sitting in class, when you're sitting at work, you take a rip of nicotine from your vape, whatever it is, 30 to 60 minutes later, your body's going to start craving that product again. So you start to get a craving. That craving is then going to trigger withdrawal. And then boom, there you are impatiently waiting to get your next nicotine fix. Now, what does withdrawal often look like for many people? It can involve a mild headache. It can involve constipation. For those who have quit for more than a few days, it usually involves sweating and insomnia. It can involve stomach upset and nausea. Withdrawal can involve appetite changes. It can involve mood changes, anxiety, depression, frustration, anxiousness. Withdrawal is going to look slightly different for everyone. And I want to make another point really, really clear. Not everyone experiences withdrawal. And I bet, I'm going to guess, there's been a point in your life when you've quit and you've noticed that sometimes the withdrawal symptoms don't seem so bad, and other times when you quit, the withdrawal symptoms seemed terrible. And I'm going to explain why that is. Why is it when you go on a family vacation and you quit nicotine, it's not so bad, but then when you're in school and you're trying to quit nicotine during a regular day-to-day basis, it becomes such a challenging situation? We'll talk about that. Now, why is it that people experience withdrawal from nicotine? So every time you use nicotine, it stimulates nicotine receptors in your brain. Now, someone who smokes, someone who vapes, someone who regularly uses nicotine products has billions more receptors, nicotine receptors in their brain than someone who doesn't use nicotine products. Now, each of these receptors has a little voice, okay? Picture each of them having a voice. And each of these receptors are always starving. They always want more nicotine. So here you are, you wake up, you take your morning hit, you go to school, you're a few sessions through class, and these little voices are all screaming at you. Go get more nicotine. Go to the bathroom, take a rip. You need more nicotine. That's all these nicotine receptors in your brain. Now, why are they doing that? Because every time you use nicotine, your body will release a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that makes you feel good. It gives you that temporary rush of adrenaline and that very, 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 very fleeting sensation of pleasure. So your brain will eventually start to crave that over and over again. It makes sense why we're addicted to nicotine on the surface. We all want to feel good. I can't blame you for that. And if nicotine releases more dopamine and a little bit of adrenaline, which might temporarily help with your focus, very temporarily help with your focus, why wouldn't you crave that? So you have nicotine. These nicotine receptors in your brain release dopamine, and dopamine is what trains us to do a behavior over and over again. So for reproductive purposes, when someone has intercourse, that generally speaking feels good. Your body releases dopamine. That's our way of human survival. It's our brain training us to do that over and over again so we can continue to populate the earth, right? It's a basic animal instinct. Sugar does the same thing. When you eat sugar, it releases dopamine. That's why so many soda companies and candy companies, they function on a principle of addiction. Now, why is that a problem? Because when you cut your brain off from nicotine, when you cut your brain off from dopamine, your brain will start to crave it. And when the cravings kick in, you start to experience withdrawals. When you're not giving your body something that it thinks it wants, it's going to let you know that it's upset. And here comes the headache, here comes the sweating, here comes the increased heart rate, here comes the constipation, here comes the nausea, here comes the agitation and the mood changes. All of these things are symptoms of nicotine withdrawal because of a craving. Now, if you've watched my other videos on how to overcome nicotine cravings, if you haven't, go watch those now. I put a little thing up top somewhere here for it. And I want you guys to let me know, what is the most challenging nicotine craving that you deal with, and I'll make a video for you on how to overcome that specific craving. Let me know below in the comments what the most challenging craving is. So, we understand how nicotine works, we understand the dopamine production, we understand what withdrawals are, but now we understand also that we go through withdrawals every 30 to 60 minutes. You're already experiencing nicotine withdrawals. Even when you're addicted, withdrawals don't just happen when you quit. In fact, withdrawals happen a heck of a lot less when you actually quit nicotine versus continuing to use nicotine. Now, a lot of people will say, Dr. Frank, so because of nicotine withdrawals, the big bad withdrawals, isn't that where I should use nicotine patches or nicotine gum? Quitting's going to look different for everyone, but my response is going to be no, absolutely not. Do not use nicotine pouches, nicotine patches, or nicotine gum. Because every time you give your body nicotine, you continue to feed those nicotine receptors, which in turn keeps those nicotine receptors alive and functioning for another day longer. Instead of ripping off the Band-Aid and being done with nicotine withdrawals, which on average last only about 3 to 5 days, nicotine is physically, PSA, nicotine physically leaves your body after 3 to 5 days. By day 10 to 12, all of the byproducts of nicotine are out of your body, including cocaine. So nicotine withdrawals end. The drug is out of your body. It's physically gone after that amount of time. What does that mean? It's just a mind game after that. And if you're continuing to feed your mind nicotine with nicotine replacement therapy products, you're going to prolong the withdrawals. It's like a slow and steady burn when you're trying to wean off of nicotine. You're also tricking your brain into thinking that you're depriving it of something, when in reality, you're not depriving yourself of anything. You hate nicotine. You hate the way it makes you feel. Get rid of it. So how do I recommend quitting to avoid nicotine withdrawals? If you want to avoid nicotine withdrawals, the best way to quit is cold turkey. Stop the slow burn. Stop the pain. It's a mindset. Remember what I said. It's really, especially after the first 2 to 3 days of detoxing, which is usually just a little sweating and frustration, it's really all about a mind game. It's all about the craving. And the more attention you pay to cravings, the more time you put into focusing on a craving, the more painful those withdrawals are going to become. That's why when I tell people, look, you're quitting nicotine, I always encourage them to find a hobby. I always encourage them to fill that void, but really there's not a void because you didn't give anything up. You got rid of something that was killing you. But I do tell people you should fill that feeling of emptiness when you quit nicotine with something else. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's making YouTube videos. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's spending time with family. Maybe it's reading books. Maybe it's practicing yoga. I don't care what it is you're doing, But take that energy, take that time that you're putting into cravings, that you're putting into withdrawals, and go put it into something valuable. So when people come to me and they say, I've had nicotine withdrawals for 3 months, I've had nicotine withdrawals for a full year, I've had cravings for a full year, my response is always the same. That unless you're using nicotine like once a month, which by the way will continue to that slow bleed of withdrawals over and over again, if you've really quit for that amount of time and you're still having cravings and you're still having withdrawals, I should say, more specifically, which a craving is a withdrawal, something's wrong with the mindset. You're still convinced that you want nicotine. You still don't believe that you actually wanted to quit nicotine, because that drug is far gone out of your body. Now, I will say this as a disclaimer, it does take about 12 weeks for the nicotine receptors in your brain to return to normal levels, and it takes a full year for your brain to 100% recover from the damage that's been caused by nicotine addiction. So, I'm not saying you're going to have cravings for a year. I'm not even saying you're going to have cravings for 3 weeks. They usually only last 3 days. If you haven't checked it out, check out my video on the first 72 and drop a comment when letting me know when you think your nicotine withdrawals are the worst. Is it day 3, day 5, day 1? What day is it? So when someone tells me that they've had nicotine withdrawals or cravings for a year, I know that there's a flaw in the mindset. For me, it's when I become unfocused. It's when I'm not focused on a goal, when I'm not focused on an opportunity. That's when my nicotine cravings were the worst, because I wasn't filling my free time. And for me, free time is the enemy. Free time is not good time. So I hope that helps. That's some basic tips. Listen, taking things like showers, meditating, reading self-help books. I think talk therapy is one of the best things you can do when it comes to nicotine withdrawal. Feel free to make a consultation with our offices below. The phone number's below. You can work with me one-on-one. There's so many options. There's so many ways to manage this. But the last thing you want to do is pick up nicotine to try and quit nicotine, because it creates to a slow and painful withdrawal process. And if you are having cravings after 3 months, a year, 6 months, call our offices, because I'm sure we can help you out. I'll catch you guys in the next video, how to beat and overcome nicotine cravings. Be sure to subscribe if this helped. Turn on your notifications. I'll see you there.